It was a typical summer evening in the small town of Millville. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the serene lake that was the centerpiece of the town. Children were playing on the beach, splashing in the water, and building sandcastles while their parents lounged on towels, soaking up the last rays of sunshine. It was a peaceful and idyllic scene, but it wouldn't remain that way for long. As dusk settled in, a strange figure appeared on the edge of the lake. It was a girl, no older than 12 or 13, with long, dark hair and a white dress. She stood there, silently watching the families on the beach, and they couldn't help but notice her odd demeanor. Despite the summer heat, she seemed to be shivering, and her eyes were fixed on something in the distance. At first, no one paid much attention to the girl. After all, it was a small town, and people knew each other well enough to know that there were no strangers around. But as the sun went down and the beach emptied, the girl remained. She stood at the edge of the water, unmoving, and her white dress billowed in the breeze. It was an eerie sight, and some of the locals began to feel uneasy. The next day, the girl was still there. She was standing in the exact same spot, staring out at the water, as if waiting for something to happen. This time, more people noticed her, and whispers began to circulate around town. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she standing there all alone? The questions went unanswered, and the girl remained a mystery. Some of the braver locals approached her, but she didn't respond to their questions or even acknowledge their presence. She simply continued to stand there, her eyes fixed on something that no one else could see. Days turned into weeks, and still, the girl remained. Her presence became a fixture of the lake, and people grew accustomed to seeing her there. But as the summer wore on, things began to change. At first, it was small things that people noticed. Strange ripples in the water, even when there was no breeze. Unexplained splashes and sounds that seemed to come from nowhere. The feeling that they were being watched, even when there was no one around. It was subtle at first, but it soon escalated into something much more sinister. One evening, a group of teenagers were out on the lake in a boat, enjoying the warm summer night. They were laughing and joking, but as they approached the spot where the girl always stood, something changed. The water around them grew cold, and they heard a low, ominous humming sound. Suddenly, the girl appeared out of nowhere, standing on the surface of the water, her white dress billowing in the wind. The teenagers screamed and paddled furiously, but the girl remained motionless, watching them with a blank expression. After that night, people began to avoid the lake. They stopped swimming, stopped boating, stopped coming anywhere near the girl. But she remained, a constant presence on the edge of the water, watching and waiting. As summer turned into fall, the town became even more isolated. The leaves began to change, and the air grew colder, but the girl remained. Her presence was a constant reminder of the unease that had settled over the town, and people began to wonder if they would ever be free of her. One night, a young couple were walking along the edge of the lake, holding hands and enjoying the autumn breeze. They were deep in conversation, not paying much attention to their surroundings, when they heard a sound. It was a soft, plaintive cry coming from the water. The couple turned towards the lake, trying to locate the source of the sound. At first, they couldn't see anything, but then they noticed a faint light coming from the water's edge. As they approached, they saw the girl, kneeling on the ground, her face buried in her hands. She was crying softly, and her body was racked with sobs. The couple didn't know what to do. They had heard the stories about the girl, and they knew that approaching her could be dangerous. But they couldn't just leave her there, crying all alone. So they cautiously approached her, calling out her name. To their surprise, the girl looked up at them, her eyes red and swollen. She seemed almost relieved to see them, and she stood up, wiping her tears away. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to scare anyone. I just need help." The couple were taken aback. They had never heard the girl speak before, and they had certainly never seen her act so vulnerable. "What's wrong?" the boy asked. The girl hesitated, as if trying to decide whether or not to trust them. "I'm trapped," she finally said. "In the water. I can't leave." The couple exchanged a look. They didn't know what to make of this, but they knew they had to help the girl somehow. "Come with us," the girl said. "I'll show you." She led them down to the water's edge, and they could see that something was different about the lake. It was as if there was a barrier preventing anyone from leaving, a force that pushed them back whenever they tried to swim away. "I've been trapped here for years," the girl said. "Ever since I drowned." The couple recoiled in horror. They had heard rumors about a girl who had drowned in the lake years ago, but they had never thought it could be true. "I can't leave," the girl continued. "But maybe you can help me. Maybe you can break the curse." The couple didn't know what to do. They had never encountered anything like this before, but they could see the desperation in the girl's eyes. They decided to try and help her, to break the curse that had trapped her in the lake for so long. They spent weeks researching the history of the town, trying to find anything that might explain the curse. They spoke to the oldest residents, asking them if they knew anything about the girl who had drowned. And eventually, they found what they were looking for. The girl had drowned in the lake years ago, but she hadn't been alone. She had been with a group of friends who had all perished in the water. It was said that their spirits still haunted the lake, seeking revenge on anyone who dared to come too close. The couple knew what they had to do. They organized a ceremony, a ritual to appease the spirits and break the curse. They gathered the town's residents together, and they all stood at the edge of the lake, holding hands and chanting. It was a long, eerie night, filled with strange sounds and inexplicable occurrences. But in the end, something changed. The water grew calmer, and the temperature rose. And then, suddenly, the girl appeared out of the water, standing on the shore once again. She smiled at the couple, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for freeing me." And then she was gone, disappearing into the night, leaving the town of Millville with a newfound sense of peace. But even now, years later, some residents swear that they can still see the girl by the lake, standing on the shore and watching over them.